I'll admit I did not see this one coming. I knew that there were influences coming from China, but what I didn't see is that it would translate into a cultural phenomenon that is now being called Chinamaxxing. It's stupid. It's ludicrous. It's absolutely insanely ludicrous. But here in 2026, the ludicrous is commonplace. The the stupid is normalized, and this qualifies in both regards. Now, I've always considered China to be one of the three biggest internal external threats, right? Yeah, and you can put them in whatever order you want because the threat level changes almost on a weekly basis. So those three are, of course, China's impact across the globe, and their direct impact here within the United States of America. Then there is Islamization. That's something that obviously has a dramatic impact as the conquest continues across Europe, as the conquest continues in parts of Asia. And yes, the conquest is really ramping up here in the United States of America. Then there is the globalism aspect of it. We see that manifesting in more along the lines of influence campaigns rather than direct integration. So, with Islamization, we see actual takeovers of cities like Dearborn. We see mosques popping up. They're pushing for epic cities or various versions of epic city in places like Texas. We're seeing it in the radical Islamization of individuals. We keep hearing about these individual, I guess, converts that are popping up and committing various acts across the United States. So you got that, but then there's the China component, and the China component has always been the most subtle. It's been they like to operate within the shadows. They send people like Fang Fang out to get control over congressmen like Eric Swalwell, right? But this is different. This is something that they've always participated in propaganda. And I say always, really, it's only been over the last 2.5 decades. But for a long time, China has participated in the propaganda side of influencing Americans. And it's usually in the form of commerce, but things are changing to where this Chinamaxxing is really about culture. They're trying to get people to basically want to be Chinese, especially young Americans. And they don't want them to be Chinese as in moving to China. No, they don't want that. They want them to stay here. They just want simps. They want people who are Americans but who prefer a Chinese way of life. And that's it sounds almost not mundane or innocent, but no, it actually is extraordinarily dangerous because if and when there is ever a massive direct conflict with the United States of America, it's not going to necessarily be the Chinese Americans, of which there are quite a few. They are, I would say, those who have left China to come into America. Sure, there's going to be spies among them. There's going to be sympathizers, but I think most of them are just happy to be Americans, right? So you don't have to worry so much about Chinese Americans. What you do have to worry about are the infiltrators. Don't forget, in Joe Biden's open border scenario, Chinese border crossers were treated differently from everybody else, and nobody actually knows why. Well, I'm sure somebody does, but none of us have been told why. We saw it documented, and I was very disappointed that it didn't get documented more. I would have done more with it if I had the resources. But you had independent journalists going down to the border, and they were actually showing that, okay, so at this border crossing, they got, the 50 people crossed over, and you had 12 of them were military-aged Chinese men, right? The rest were from various places across the world. And all of the rest of the people, they got put into certain buses. But special buses came for the Chinese military-aged men. And that's what we know. We don't know why. We don't know where they went. We don't know anything about them. We just know that the one estimate that I saw showed approximately, there were hundreds. I don't know what the number was, but it was hundreds of thousands. Could it be millions? Possible. But I would say at least hundreds of thousands of military-aged Chinese men are here in the United States, and we have no idea where they are. Okay? In many cases, we have no idea who they are. And that's obviously a tremendous concern. Anytime I hear about attacks on infrastructure, the first thing I think of is that a Chinese terrorist cell that's being activated. I know that generally we always think, oh, is that an Iranian or some sort of radical Islamic terrorist cell being activated, or is it some American simping, which is always possible as well. My first thought goes to China because I keep thinking that it's there, it's going to happen someday. But the other ones that we have to be concerned about are the weirdo Americans. Generally speaking, they're mostly leftists. They're brainwashed. A lot of times they're college students. A lot of times their hair is purple. They got body tattoos. They probably don't identify as male or female based upon their biological sex. There's probably some sort of delusion or mental illness or sexual deviancy there in being applied. And yes, they love China. They want to be Chinese. They do things like they wear slippers when indoors. They drink hot water with goji berries. I don't know what they do, but they do these weird things. And now, today, this phenomenon is turning more mainstream. And it's because China has bought stories in various legacy media outlets. We have this story, my version, over at AmericaFirstReport.com, or you can always subscribe to the newsletter at AmericaFirst.report.substack.com. AmericaFirstReport.com or AmericaFirst.substack.com. It's titled, Legacy Media is Packaging Communist Tyranny as the Next Cool Thing. And I'm not going to read the article, but let's go over the bullet points. Legacy media outlets near daily have features portraying China as superior in things like AI ethics, EV tech, drug research, and global leadership. And I've read some of these articles. They really do paint them now as, whereas it's obvious that we are distinctly and in various versions of technological and economic cold wars with China. It's not just the tariffs, it's everything else. I mean, even just like what was it, Temu? I think it is. Is that what it's called? Temu and Shine. I don't shop online, but except for the occasional Amazon. But they're being positioned as, they're superior in so many ways, and all this stuff. And of course, the AI component, the automotive component, it kills me whenever I see, look at this shining review on this trusted automotive website publication, regarding these Chinese electric vehicles. We even posted on our sites. We even posted an article talking about the robo-taxi race that's currently going on between America's robo-taxi industry and China's robo-taxi industry. And we did position it as a warning, not as oh my gosh, Chinese robo-taxis are so amazing. But I look at these articles from these legacy media outlets, and it's like, holy cow. And we're not talking about, like KFOR in Oklahoma City. We're talking about like Bloomberg, The Guardian. Let me actually pull some of these. Here it is. The Guardian informs readers that China is now the quote-unquote good guy on AI, while the United States pursues a reckless Wild West approach. The Wall Street Journal casts Beijing as the ethical actor in pharmaceutical research. Who'd have thunk it? CBS highlights Chinese leadership in EVs. Bloomberg suggests China might assume a larger role in global governance. The Financial Times notes foreign car makers scramble to adopt Chinese technology to stay relevant. These stories do not merely report developments, they frame them as proof of superior Chinese wisdom and discipline. It's infuriating. I'm beside myself for not seeing this. This in retrospect, it's like, yeah, of course this is what they would do. And we've seen throughout the years examples Who was it? Oh, there was a recent one. It was not recent. It was probably 3 or 4 years ago. But I think it was. ah, I'd like to say it was either New York Times or Washington Post, where they got into some trouble. It didn't get widely publicized, but they'd gotten into some trouble for publishing pro-China editorials. These were blatant. It wasn't just talking about a specific industry or sort of leaning towards, they're the responsible actor in AI or anything like that. No, it was like basically saying that it was full blown, direct and unambiguous propaganda and it was paid for. These were directly paid for. The only fault that that they were this whichever publication it was, the only fault they were slapped with was you should have labeled it as sponsored as an advertorial, basically, and you didn't, so you're in trouble. Gosh, was it? I don't remember. It actually might have been Penn Live. It might have been a slightly smaller publication. It's been a while. It's been about, I'd say, 4 years since that popped up. There was a nice write up about it. I believe it was in Breitbart, but it could have actually been Spectator. Now, American Spectator. Now that I think about it, it doesn't matter. Point is that today we're seeing it popping up in the editorial and in a way that cannot be as blatantly caught. Before they were caught because it was obvious that these were puff pieces, they were advertorials, they were propaganda, and that's why these publications got busted. These versions are written journalistically. I mean, they're published as either direct opinion pieces from with no alleged ties, or published as news articles. But I guarantee you they're paid for in one way or the other. Okay, this isn't just these publications or these journalists have been captured in some way by China, that it's too widespread. I'm sure some of it is, but a lot of it has to be either bribery or blackmail. It's always possible. That's in China's toolbox. The Chinese Communist Party has been known to figure out ways to control people. This is why they bring fangs into America. And to be fair, we do the same thing to everybody else too. I mean, all the major powers do it to some extent. China has just done it, probably 10x more than everybody else, maybe even more so than everybody else combined. This is their thing. They don't like to innovate. The Chinese Communist Party, because of their government structure, because of the oppressive way that they treat the people, they are not innovators. They are not creators. They are thefts. That's why their thing is, why develop something with the military when you can just hack and try to steal it from the Americans or the Russians or the French or whoever? Not that anybody would want to steal French military technology, but you get the idea. That's what they've done. That's their style. They don't see anything wrong with it. They consider, it's work smarter, not harder, in their opinion. Why build something when you can just steal it? Back to the article bullet points. And again, you can read this article over at americafirstreport.com. A viral, quote, Chinamaxxing, or, quote, becoming Chinese meme shows Western youth embracing superficial habits like drinking hot water and wearing slippers. Amplified, of course, by state-friendly coverage that has been in some way bought or purchased, acquired by the Chinese Communist Party. Polls claim American favorability toward China has doubled. Wow, it's working. Presented as spontaneous public sentiment rather than shaped consensus. The liars lie about lying. That's what they do. And I'm not talking about China. In this case, I'm talking about legacy media. You can't trust it. Even Fox News people, but the only thing I ever watch from legacy media is Fox News. Well, you can't trust Fox News either. I'll just tell you. And we could talk about Newsmax. We could talk about News Nation. We could talk about OAN. We could talk about all those. Just think of it along the lines of your ideal sources for information are going to come, in my humble opinion, and yes, I fall into this category, so it's self-serving, but small to mid-sized publishers, influencers, and I'm not talking about, TikTokers. Not that there's anything wrong with conservative TikTokers, but I'm not talking about, beauty tips here. I'm talking about actual cultural, political, or religious commentators that are going out there putting themselves personally, individually in in the crosshairs. The Nick Shirleys of the world. We talk about Nick Shirley a lot. Yes, somebody commented, "Oh, you sort of idolize Nick Shirley." It's like, no, unfortunately, I think that he's very good. I think there are better ones than him out there that are smaller. Better as far as individual investigative journalists independent journalists who are going out there and doing this stuff. He just happened to he struck gold, and God bless him for that. He really did, open the floodgates. He was the inspiration for a lot of these people that I now also follow. But I don't idolize any of them. But yeah, and a lot of times, look, they get it wrong sometimes too. There are advantages to quote unquote trained journalists. There's not many. You do want more of the independent style, of course, but sometimes they do make mistakes. Maybe they present it wrong. Maybe they, there was one, I forgot who it was, but one of the influencers out there was sort of going a little bit over the top when it came to the conclusions from their investigation. They were saying that it was definitely fraud, and anyway, it doesn't matter. Point is that you can trust them. You can trust, certain. I would say, full-blown conservatives, sometimes even the right-leaning ones, as far as independent and not independent, but they're still quote-unquote corporate, but they're medium-sized. Like, again, the Breitbarts, the Gateway Pundit, many in town hall media such as Red State or Twitchy. The Federalist is a great one. American Thinker, good opinions over there. I can go up and down the list, and maybe someday I will. For my news aggregators such as discernreport.com, I do go and, we keep a feed and we read through every single individual headline, 1,500 to 2,500 a day across approximately 300 sources. And there are some great ones. The Post Millennial, great stuff. And their sister at humanevents.com, great stuff. Independent Sentinel, my good friend, she doesn't like to have her name out there. Our good friend, Ms. Mrs. Dowling. I actually don't know how to pronounce her last name, but she does great work. The Epoch Times, as far as the bigger ones, Breitbart, the Epoch Times, they do fantastic work as well. That's where you should be getting your news, and of course, getting it from X and listening to certain podcasters. I still love to listen to Glenn Beck. Sometimes he gets a little bit different, but I still love listening to Glenn Beck. There's some good ones out there. Pick your poison. Just don't be getting it from as much as you can avoid it. Sometimes you have to, because the one advantage that legacy media does have is that they have the resources to be able to, they're not just talking about Iran. They've got dudes in Iran. Okay. Well, not in Iran, but in, close to Iran. They might have dudes in Iran. Who knows? I doubt it. They're not that bold, but they are at least in the Middle East and reporting live and talking to the big people. Okay, enough about that. Back to China. Polls claim that American favorability towards China has doubled. This article does avoid the scrutiny. I'm sorry, not this article. Other articles avoid the scrutiny of Chinese surveillance state. They don't talk about the forced labor allegations. They don't talk about territorial aggression, economic coercion, the fact that they steal, the fact that they do any of these things. They don't paint China as the authoritarian, anti-American, anti-faith, and we'll get into that here in a second, nation that it is. Yeah. Narrative aligns with Beijing's vision of multipolarity and multilateralism. This is code for diluting Western-led institutions, especially those led by the United States of America. There are historical parallels we're not going to get into, and blah blah blah. But let me get to the chase. This is the important takeaway. You have to wonder why. Why would the adversary? Why would the powers and principalities? Why would the globalist elite cabal, the New World Order, whatever? Why would they allow China, which doesn't quite fit into their mix? Why would they want them to be involved? But just like Islamization, just like globalism, China, and the Chinese Communist Party in particular, does have one tremendous alignment with all of them. And that's why I consider these three to be the biggest threats. It's not because, I'm so scared of Sharia law. I mean, I don't want Sharia law. I will fight Sharia law here in the United States of America, but I don't consider it to be a huge threat because of the Constitution. Now, that may change based upon, the political winds, but that's not my big concern. My big concern is the conversion component. Same thing with globalism. Am I super concerned that there's going to be another uh, George Floyd riot that comes out of these ICE protests or anything like that? No, I mean, I think that those are threats, obviously, but they do something that really their true enemy is something that I hold dear. Same thing with this Chinamaxxing concept. They're hitting it up from a cultural perspective. They're hitting it up from a violence perspective. And yes, they're hitting it up from a religious perspective. All of three are hitting it up from a political perspective. What am I talking about? Yes, it is the attack on the faith. That is what this propaganda is doing. By promoting a regime, a culture, a way of life that is antithetical to the biblical belief system, the biblical worldview, the Christian way of life, they are trying to, as with almost everything that they do, they are trying to destroy the seeds, the foundation of faith here in the United States of America, particularly with the young and impressionable. That's the real threat of Chinamaxxing. That's the real threat of people like Soros and Singham investing globalist money into protests and district attorneys and the takeover of the United States of America. That's the real threat of Islam spreading across this nation so rapidly that most people couldn't even believe how fast it's moving. It's not the attack on the Constitution. That's part of it. But that's the smaller part. The real threat is the attack on the Bible. It's the attack against God, which all three of them oppose vehemently. He is their number one enemy, and the close second, as far as their top enemy, are those of us who believe in him, who worship him, who love him. We are their targets. It's not the political right. It's not, you can argue that it's just, the truth, or it's just America's prowess. Those are parts of it. But the real target, the long-term target, is to take down Christians, take down the faith, take down the church. And I need to do a longer version of this, because a lot of times I think when people hear that, they think, oh, he's just being hyper-religious, or he's just being Bible paranoid, or he's just seeing. No. I've thought through this. I've prayed through this. This is it. I'm telling you, this is it. This is the end goal. This is why they work so well together, even though their secondary goals might be completely not aligned. You see it, for example, with the radical left, the Marxists, the Red-Green Alliance. How can Marxists who embrace wokeness, DEI, LGBTQIA plus supremacy, those are things that Islam as a religion completely abhors. And Islam, which is a very strict, all-encompassing religion, how can Marxists who oppose religion of all forms, how could they align so well with the religion that imposes itself the most into people's lives and into societies? How does that make any sense? The only way that could possibly make any sense is when you realize that they might hate each other, but they hate us a heck of a lot more. Their opposition to God, their opposition to his servants on earth, that supersedes everything else. There are other differences. They'll sort that out after we're dead. Same thing with China. This adoption of Chinamaxxing, it's one of the many threats that we're facing. But there is a silver lining here. There is an amazing truth. Even though all of these threats are targeting us as Christians, targeting our faith, targeting the church, that makes it a risk, a great risk to all of us. We're getting hit from all sides. But the beautiful part of it is that it really makes it pretty simple for us as individuals, as families, as communities, and yes, as a nation. It tells us that if we're the target because of a particular trait, a particular binding force, then that means we got nothing to worry about, because that binding force happens to be the most powerful force in the universe. And if we focus on that, they have no chance of defeating us in the end.
Are you not entertained? Are you not entertained?
The insurance you need to protect your American dream. That's the tagline for my great friends over at America First Healthcare. You can find out more for yourself. You can reach them by going to patriot.tv/health, patriot.tv/health. Check them out, see what they offer, whether it's for health, for life, for business insurance. They do a fantastic job. That's just me saying it. I would strongly encourage you to reach out to them through that link, talk to them, and see what they can do for you. Because look, we can say, oh great, it's awesome, they're America First company and blah 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 blah, they have their shared values and all that. That's great, right? It really is. But is it better? I mean, we're not going to be getting worse coverage just because we can they might give us worse coverage, but by golly, they promote America. That's that's just not going to happen. We are practical people, my audience here at Patriot TV. But with that said, they claim, and I would encourage you to research it, but they claim that they actually have better coverage than what you get through the government-controlled healthcare systems or even many of the private healthcare offerings out there. And more importantly, perhaps for some of you, they offer better rates with, according to their website, with thousands of insurance plans to choose from. It can feel overwhelming to find the right plan at the right price. At America First Healthcare, we take a holistic approach to make sure we find the best coverage for your exact needs. We get you better rates by helping you choose the right type and amount of coverage. Then we shop around for the best results. They can save you up to 20% on the coverage. Who couldn't use? I know we're most of us, the vast majority of us, are paying. I mean, compared to what we used to pay, my goodness, we're paying a lot. 20% right off the top. That would be a huge benefit. So reach out to my good friends over at America First Healthcare. Go to patriot.tv/health. Patriot.tv/health. Food shortages are coming. That's not Chicken Little stuff. That's not fear-mongering. That is a sober assessment of the current situation, the events around the globe that are affecting America's food supply, and not even just the events, even here on the ground, what we're seeing as far as droughts and stupid policies and culling of herds and crops going either unplanted or unpicked because of costs. There are so many factors that are coming together to form the cliched perfect storm for food shortages. We are already seeing prices rising at the grocery store, but we're not in the effect zone yet, okay? When it comes to food, the events of today impact the food prices of tomorrow, and that tomorrow might be months away. I said in an episode last month that experts are saying 7 to 10 months. Now they're saying 5 to 7 months. It has seemed to have accelerated. And it's not just the war in Iran. It's not just the closure of the Strait of Hormuz, or the current, however you want to call it, the slowing down of the bottleneck, the trickling. The damage there has already been done. And yes, it could get worse if the strait is closed for much longer. But even if the strait were to completely open tomorrow and the floodgates started allowing ships to flow through unopposed, and everything started going back to normal, we are still far off from normalcy. The effects are already in play. And so even though it will get worse the longer it's prolonged, it's still already done, right? Spring planting season is over for certain crops, and the fertilizer supplies have been harmed. Now, President Trump's administration has done quite a bit to mitigate the damage, but there's only so much they can do. You can't change the rules of of weather and planting. You can make certain adjustments, try to fit into certain windows, maybe even push those windows open a little further, but it doesn't change the fact that we do not have the necessary amount of crops currently planted. We've already experienced those challenges. Throw the current drought on top of that, and other factors. We can look at policy factors. We can look at culling of beef herds. We have an article over, let's see, where is this? Over at Late Prepper. There we go, easy enough. LatePrepper.com, one of my Substacks, that's titled Florida's Oranges, America's Beef, and those two, combined with wheat as the third, those three, we'll say, are they're the bellwether crops and foods. Can they be replaced? You betcha. But they still, the fact that our orange production is down 95% compared to its high, which I believe was I think it was like 1995 or whenever. No, 96. 96 was the peak. And then our cattle herd has shrunk to its smallest size since 1951. And you have seen that. You have noticed that ribeye that just a few years ago you could very easily get for, on sale for like $8.99 a pound. Now it's like $22 a pound, at least out here in California. I'm sure if you're not out here and you're in other areas, I'm sure it's cheaper. But you have seen the prices skyrocket, and they don't seem to be abating. Then there's the whole wheat issue. The wheat issue has to do with the drought and with the inability to properly plant and care for, I think it's the red hard wheat, which is very important for bread, high protein wheat that has been most pummeled. Point is, and that's just three of the food components, those bellwether components regarding our food supply. There are dozens, hundreds of others complications that are affecting the food supply. So we're not, again, I want to be clear, this is not, oh my gosh, food supply is going down, you better go buy my whatever, whoever, Good Ranchers or whatever, any of those various providers. I don't have a horse in this race. Okay, yeah, granted, one of our sponsors is Heaven's Harvest. You can always get to them by going to patriot.tv/food. But that's long-term storage food. Okay, that's for 25 years shelf life stuff. We're not going to be talking about that today. Okay, at this point, I'm trying to make sure that everybody has their 3 to 6 month food supply, and most Americans don't. We're not talking about buckets of prepper food here. Today, I'm trying to make sure that you're not screwed over with, after 2 or 3 weeks of severe food shortages, something that could turn into things that are very bad, including riots that can shut down grocery stores. The type of when people get desperate for food, we saw what happened in Venezuela just a few years ago, where they had those horrific videos of people dumpster diving, and these weren't like homeless people, or what I guess some of them might have been, but these were just average everyday Venezuelan parents trying to get some scraps to feed their children. And I'm not suggesting that we're on the verge of anything like that here. I will say this, that number one, that's not impossible. We have this sense of superiority here in the United States, and rightly so, because we are superior. At least our structure and our society is superior in many ways. But we're not immune to the crazy things happening. And even if, let's take it back a notch and let's get away from apocalyptic and societal ending. Let's just say, hey, food prices skyrocket for a short period of time. Let's say it's not even permanent. Even in that situation, it behooves you to make sure that you have adequate stocked up foods. And I'm not talking about prepper foods this time. I'm talking about just your normal everyday foods. Because if you think that food is expensive today and you don't want to buy a lot of it, just wait until tomorrow, next week, next month, later this year. And then you'll be thinking, wow, that Those $3 cans of sardines back then, I should have stocked up more of those since they have a 3 to 5 year acknowledged shelf life. And in reality, the shelf life is probably much higher than that. But, you probably, you will have wanted to get those foods. Apologies, my dog is dreaming, and so she's barking in her sleep. Let's see if you can hear that. You hear that? That's my dog. Yeah. All right. Yeah, that's what you get for doing a podcast in a studio that allows dogs such as mine. Anyway, so anyway, yeah, I don't remember where I was, but point is that you wish you would have stocked up a lot more of those cans of $3 sardines that you used to think were expensive, but now they're $7, right? So let's talk about it. These are three very basic. This isn't going to be like earth-shattering. This is more along the lines of getting your mentality in the right spot. You need to be thinking along the lines of stockpiling, of preserving, and of producing. Those are the three categories. Stockpile, preserve, and produce. So stockpiling, we'll start with the first one. Stockpiling is very easy. That's the part that does require resources, namely money. And a secondary resource that should be taken in consideration for many of you is space. All right? You make the space. Let that, unless you're in a tiny one-bedroom apartment, even in that scenario, replace your table with cans of tuna, right? Just stack up 100 cans of tuna and put a cardboard box over top of it, and that can be your stash if you don't have the space to store all of that. Now's the time to stock up and make sure that your cupboards are full. Your pantry is full. Having tons of beans and rice, while those are still affordable, and they are, tons of beans and rice, tons of canned vegetables. And I hate canned vegetables, to be clear. I don't recommend canned vegetables ever, but in this case, and I shouldn't say tons, some canned vegetables. The main thing that you want to be able to stockpile when it comes to canned foods would be meats. Canned chicken, the aforementioned sardines that I love, tuna, and make sure that you get food that you'll actually eat, right? I mean, you don't want to stockpile a whole bunch of food that you hate. That's stupid. Get the foods that you like. If I'm not a fan of SpaghettiOs, but if for whatever reason you like SpaghettiOs with meatballs, get those. I'm not a fan of Campbell's soup, but if you can stockpile Campbell's soup, get those. If I do ever eat canned soup, it's usually Wolfgang Puck's, which when I say usually, it's been years since I've ever had any because I don't like canned foods at all. But I've got them just in case. If there comes a time when we just can't afford to go to the grocery store, we can't afford food price, food. We can't afford to go get food at the store. Or if something happens, and maybe it's not a question of we can't afford it, maybe prices and chaos gets so bad that grocery stores, not only are there grocery store runs, but maybe there's full-blown chaos and grocery stores are getting rioted, looted, maybe even burnt to the ground. You don't know what the scenario could be that causes it. We just know that our society and the current condition is headed towards something. Best case scenario is increased prices. Worst case scenario is societal collapse. And I would say there's at least a 3 to 5% chance of something like that happening in the next 5 years. Okay. But again, we can say with a near certainty that the food prices themselves are going to go up. But it's not just canned food. There are, what you're looking to stock are foods that you can eat, foods that are nutritious. I know that a lot of times people focus on, preppers go, it's all about the calories. It's all about the calories. That is mostly true, but that's really more true in an apocalyptic, like a bug out situation. You need the calories so that you have the energy to keep moving and, as you're being chased by zombies, right? That's why calories are so important. But there are people out there that live and even thrive off of 12 to 1,500 calories a day instead of 2,000 to 2,500. So it is about there can be times where sure things will be lean, but it's not necessarily going to kill you if you go 2 months on a lower calorie diet. You will be less active, right? You won't have as much energy, and there's a good chance that at least for a certain period of time you will lose weight. until your body starts compensating, it starts getting used to only intaking, say, 1,200 calories a day, at which point, yeah, you'll just be more sloth-like, but you'll be surviving. Okay, you won't, you hopefully, depending as long as you get the right foods, you won't be nutritionally deficient either. But with that said, get the foods that you like. I have I wouldn't call him a friend. He's more of a just somebody that I know. But his philosophy, if you look in his quote unquote prepper pantry, and it really is just a regular pantry because it's dual purpose. He uses that to store his regular food and his prepper supplies. But he's got like hundreds of boxes of pasta and dozens, if not hundreds, of cans. I don't know how many cans of various Italian sauces. Whether it's Alfredo or marinara or whatever, he's got that stockpiled, and he says he can eat pasta every single day. Okay. On top of that, and he does have meats. He even went and splurged for cans of ground beef, which, because of the ground canned beef in general, was always expensive relative to fish or tuna or spam or anything like that. It was always like double, triple the cost. Now it's even gone up higher, right? For the most part. But he splurged, and he got him cans of ground beef and whatever. It was shredded beef, roast beef, I think. He loves his beef. He also has chicken that he's willing to add. And doesn't and mussels. He's got lots of canned mussels. Those are all, the chicken's not high dollar, but the mussels and the beef are definitely high dollar items that have a 2+ year shelf life, and he loves that kind of stuff. Just pick out the stuff that you'll eat and then eat it. Okay, let's say, whether because of your financial situation you're in good shape, right? And even as food prices go up, you're able to continue to not be disrupted. You keep your refrigerator full. Your grocery store doesn't go into chaos and everything's hunky dory, just priced a little bit higher. Great. It's still important to have those canned foods because you don't know if the chaos is going to end. And yes, there is the unfortunate, at least for people like me, the unfortunate side effect of, if you buy the canned food, you don't want to waste it. So that means that here in 3 years, whether you want to or not, you're going to have to start eating the SpaghettiOs, right? Because I like to rotate the food, but I don't like to waste food. It's a sin to me, and I was actually raised that way. I know that it's not technically true the way that my mom said. I mean, she used to be like, every grain of rice that's left on your plate is that's considered an individual sin. I remember, I was like 5 when she was telling me this, and I took that to heart. And maybe that's why I'm a little bit overweight, or maybe a lot overweight. But hey, who knows? I don't like to waste food. And you shouldn't either. Food is precious. Food is a gift from God. So don't let it don't toss it. If you can do anything to avoid that. But that is a side effect. If you're going to stock it, then that means that if the apocalypse doesn't come, if the food shortages don't break you or break the system, then that means that you're going to have a lot of cans that you're going to be, eaten here in a few years, or do what my wife and I do. Well, at least we used to. We don't do it anymore, but we would donate cans. 3 months prior to expiration, we go through, and we had an awesome, amazing prepper shelf that was a good rotation. We categorized everything by month. Okay, expiration date month, and then 3 months prior to the expiration date, we would go take all that, donate it, and then that particular shelf would become the next month's stockpile, right? That's where we start. Anyway, you get the idea. So yeah, so that's how you start. Now, number 2, preserving. You can use dehydration. I'm not a fan. And we did it for a long time. It just, I don't know, it just wasn't very good. I don't actually recall any dehydrated food that I liked. And we've been doing this for what, I guess, approaching 2 decades. And so there have been a lot of dehydrated foods that we had. We dehydrated it, we sealed it, vacuum sealed it, and now it's expired. Because dehydrated food does not last as long as freeze-dried food, and certain types of canned foods even last longer. So, and I'm saying that you can. So I'm not a fan of it, but it is far less expensive. And so if that's what you can do, so be it. My preference, I'm not going to get into canning because it's an entire lifestyle that we haven't gone down. If you have, God bless you, and keep going. And if you want to get into it, it is a very honorable and I think extraordinarily effective way to keep food fresh and sustainable for an extended period of time. And many people who prefer canning over freeze drying say that because you're not actually changing the form of the food, it's superior in that manner, right? Yes, I agree, but I still prefer freeze drying for two reasons. Number one, because it does extend the storage potential for the longest, the maximum amount. Many freeze dried foods will last for well over 25 years. And so I like that aspect of it. But secondly, as far as the one drawback to canning is that, let's say you build up a big stockpile of canned food, that's hard to transport. And you have to have it secured. And it's just, oh, well, I guess there's a third reason, and that's because of the risk of contamination. No matter how careful you are, there can be times when food can still get contaminated by microorganisms and stuff like that. There's of course the risk of it not being secured, physically secured in its location. If you're using canning glass jars, out here we have the occasional earthquake, and that can be a bad thing, right? There are huge advantages. I'm not ripping on canning. I'm not saying don't do it. I'm just saying there's a reason. There are reasons that I don't do it. We do prefer freeze drying. Transporting freeze dried food is far easier. There's no chance of breakage, and it's much lighter because all the moisture is taken out, right? So the disadvantages to freeze dried food is that you absolutely positively have to have water. It's very beyond challenging, almost impossible for certain foods to be able to eat them when they're freeze dried, if you don't hydrate them first. Now, certain foods you can. Everybody, hopefully, maybe I shouldn't say everybody knows. Maybe it's been so long that the younger generation doesn't remember freeze dried ice cream. Space ice cream, as they used to call it. It's what they used to take up on the shuttle missions in like the 80s. Very popular back then and actually quite tasty. But most freeze-dried foods, you really do need to hydrate them. And that hydration, if you're not using hot water, that hydration can take a long, long time. So that's the drawback to it. The advantage, if you are in a situation where you're bugging in, food prices are high, but you still got water, then to me, freeze-dried food is superior. It retains the vast, a huge percentage of the nutritional value. It retains nearly all of the taste for most foods, and it can be very far better than canning when it comes to my favorite thing to do, which is leftover control. In times of where food prices are going up, a lot of times people will reduce their portion size. We do the opposite. We will take, if we have for our family meal, we will take it and we will make a little bit extra, sometimes a lot extra, and we will include the leftovers from that, and get that freeze dried, turned into future meals. And if we don't get to it for 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, 25 years, so be it. Lord willing, we'll still be around at that point, and we'll be so happy to be eating. It's almost like reminiscing. It's like, wow, look at the date on there, and I'll be like, hey, honey, I remember when you were making this. I remember you. Maybe that's not how it will go down, but you get the idea. So, taking advantage. You see a sale at the grocery store. Oh my gosh, you can buy I don't even know how many it is. X number of zucchinis for $3. Great, let's get dozens and then go take them and freeze dry them. Yeah, there you go. So the preservation aspect of it is clearly important. The most important for those who have the time, the resources, the space, the inclination, the willingness, the desire, you should be producing your own food. This is the ultimate prepper skill, in my humble opinion. This is why I have started, and just within the last week or so, I have started going from, it would be nice to go out and, get a bunker in Idaho or a homestead in Montana. That'd be a great thing. If you want to do it, so be it. Now I have shifted to where, you know what? If you can do it, if you have the ability, you should. You shouldn't be living in Philadelphia anymore. You shouldn't be living in the suburbs of whatever anymore. Try to get to a place, unless now I say you shouldn't. If you're in a nice, secure, suburb with gardening capabilities, and you got your neighbors, you got the situation. I shouldn't say if you're in a suburb, leave. You have to be aware of your situation. Number one, aware of your surroundings, and be able to assess. Do you feel secure in a crap hits the fan situation or in a massive food shortage situation? You have the resources, you have the assets, you have the people around you in that scenario, and hopefully you have a backyard with sufficient room to make a nice large garden and the willingness to do so and the ability to do so. It's not easy. Okay, my wife first started her gardening. I don't know. It's got to be 6-8 years ago, maybe longer. But initially, no offense, but it didn't turn out very well. I think we got about half of maybe less than half of what she actually planted. And it wasn't good. Over the years, she got better and better and better. But I am to that point to where we have, based upon situation, because it's always personal, based upon our current personal situation, we can't leave where we are. And so, it is what it is. That may be the case for many, if not most of you. But those who can, if you can, do it. This is your wake-up call. This is your permission. I'm giving you whatever, ideological permission to sell everything and go move out to wherever, South Dakota. I keep picking that area, but really, it's preference. Go to Oklahoma, go to Tennessee, go to Florida, wherever you can go, where you can establish security, preferably if you can go to a place that is run by Republicans, run by conservatives. And that doesn't mean that you have to be Republican or conservative to do this, but let's face it, if you're going for freedom, if you're going for protection, if you're going to avoid riots and stuff like that, you're just going to be better off in Republican areas. Even places like Washington and Oregon, they're, even though they're the rural areas are still under the jurisdiction and laws of the state, they may individually be in their particular counties. Then they may actually have some freedoms and some good things that make them appealing. I don't know. Again, do your research, pick out the right place, but find a way to get to the point to where you can start producing your own food. To me, the ultimate, the most important, let's say resources are not an issue, and you have room, you have the money. To me, the best production, and maybe it's because I'm more carnivorous than omnivorous. I'm definitely not vegan or vegetarian. But to me, the best way to produce food is through chickens, eggs, daily eggs, tons of fresh eggs. If you've got the resources, you don't necessarily need a whole lot of skill. Just build up the coop, get the fencing around it. You got a nice little area, throw in some grubs or whatever. And I don't do it, so I'm not an expert on this. It's something where my family did it not my family, not my close family, but I have a secondary family that they do this. And I mean, they're in a tiny itty bitty yard. The chicken coop takes up most of it, but they do it, and they just show me their fresh eggs. It's like, wow, those look really good. I've tried these eggs. They're fantastic eggs. And all they do, and they're older. These are older people. They're not like out there tending to the chickens. They let the chickens be chickens. And then they wake up in the morning and they go get some eggs. Sometimes there's 2 or 3. Sometimes there's 5 or 6. Depending upon how many there are, that's what they cook for the day. These eggs never go in the refrigerator. Never have anything other than getting washed and cooked. And it's amazing. Just how God established an animal, a chicken, that we can use to produce a constant flow if done right, a constant flow super nutritious protein and fats and all the other nutritional values of eggs. Eggs are perfect food, and we don't have to do anything. We just have to keep the chickens alive. You know, it's amazing. Praise God for that. So, stockpile as much as you can now for the near future. Again, 3 to 6 months is good. A year is better. 2 years is better than that. 25 years is fantastic. If going beyond 25 years, who knows? I don't want to think past the next 2 or 3 years, let alone 25. We should be focused on today. And today, the risk that's surrounding us is one of food shortage that could hit at any moment, but probably certainly will hit, at least price wise, here within the next few months. So stockpile, preserve, and produce. Those are the 3 keys to making sure that regardless of what happens with food shortages, let's say it reverses itself and everything goes hunky-dory and all of my Chicken Little stuff proves to be wrong, awesome. Praise God, you still got food. If you do it right, you're still going to eat it whether there's a catastrophe or not.
Oh, you're gonna love it. Love it.
It seems like just about every conservative podcaster, show host, whatever, in today's podcastosphere has a gold sponsor of some sort. And the unfortunate reality is the vast majority of these gold sponsors will push what's called numismatic coins. The reason they do this, they push these quote-unquote collectible coins, is because they can charge extremely high margins on them. We're talking 10%, 20%, 30%, 40%, 50%, or higher. As hard as it is to believe, that's why they're so focused on these collectibles, because they can build a false value into the price and get people to buy them, to roll over their IRA or whatever. I work with a company that specializes in just straight up bullions, rounds, the stuff that you take it, you weigh it, you see what the price of gold or silver is, and that's how much it's worth. It's not about, oh my gosh, look at this picture of this whatever, whoever, somebody, something on the front. Oh, this is so great. This is amazing. It's going to be worth so much more than just your average silver round, which is what my guy likes to promote. Check him out. His name is Ira. He's a stud, and you can learn more from him by going to advisorbullion.com. That's advisor, BULLION, advisorbullion.com, or easy to remember, jdrucker.com/gold. That's probably the easiest way to do it. jdrucker.com/gold. Ira will walk you through. If you want to just pay cash, you just want to wire a few $1,000s and get it shipped discreetly to your door, and so you can put it in your safe, awesome. If you want to have a rollover or whatever for your retirement account, awesome. Ira can help you with all of that stuff. So check him out. Go to jdrucker.com/gold and get the real stuff. Today's episode may be the most personally conflicting episode that I've ever done. We're going to be talking about artificial intelligence, and I'm going to attempt to make 2 very, very powerful and yet almost opposite, well, not almost, truly opposite arguments. I'm going to be not necessarily playing devil's advocate. I don't like that phrase, but I will be explaining, on one hand, how the amazing technological advances that are possible with artificial intelligence, this rapid growth into something that can be very, very effective, very powerful, and can be used for good. But on the other hand, obviously, anyone who's ever heard me talking about AI knows that I am more than just a skeptic. I'm not sitting here thinking, you know what, maybe AI it's something to be considered. No, I have very clearly declared that I wholeheartedly believe AI is very likely a contributing factor, if not a direct trigger of the end times beast system as described in Bible prophecy. It seems to fit in just way too well. So in other words, AI can be our pathway to great advancements, to saving hundreds, thousands, perhaps even tens or hundreds of thousands of lives on a regular basis, of making it to where our productivity and our lives are so far advanced beyond where they are today that it can be considered almost like a utopia. And on the other hand, it almost certainly will be an element of our societal decline, societal demise. It is both an existential threat and a wonderful potential tool. And we're going to be talking about both today. So, how glorious is that? Praise God for our our personal contradictions, which can still, hopefully, Lord willing, be illuminating to all of you. Today's episode, rightly so, is brought to you by my amazing friends over at Promised Grounds. You can check them out, and please do, because we definitely can use the sales. They can definitely use the sales, and you can definitely use the high quality, amazing, absolutely tasty coffee they produce. This is a Christian company. You can check them out yourself at patriot.tv/coffee, and I strongly encourage you to do so, because again, we need it. This article, I made sure to coffee up myself. So we have this over at economiccollapse.report. You can also follow this and get it in your inbox by going to economiccollapsereport.substack. Is it the report? Let me double check that before. No, it's not, there's not even a report. It's economiccollapse.substack.com is the newsletter, and then economiccollapse.report is the website. Apologies for that mishap. So we have it titled 10 Problems AI Should Be Solving and the Risk of Outsourcing Our Stewardship. You know, tools throughout human history have made dramatic changes to the way that we interact. Oftentimes people will point to the printing press as probably a perfect example, because prior to that you had scribes that would just sit there and repeatedly copy books. And now, with the printing press, that made it to where you could mass produce books. It changed the world. We would not be living in the world would be completely different if the printing press took an extra 100 years, and it would be completely different if the printing press had come out 100 years earlier. It came out at the perfect time. It came out on God's schedule, as things always do. And I would argue that the same can be said about artificial intelligence. It is emerging on God's calendar. And so to be here at this time is definitely a blessing. I don't even want to say that it's a curse, because even as we go through the coming hardships that are going to result from the geopolitical changes, from the changes in the physical world, obviously the changes in the technological world, and we can assume, if you've read through the book of Revelation, we can assume that there will be actual changes as in the form of crazy events that could be coming. So if you do believe that we are in the biblical end times, then, praise God, because despite the hardship, we who have read the book, we who know how it ends, we can count ourselves as truly blessed to be in this amazing time. So according to the article, we have these 10 items. All 10 of these, to be clear, I don't want to make it sound as if these are super creative. I wanted to be very careful, because you can speculate all you want, right? And we can go in, and I actually even considered going into a little bit more aggressive styles of showing what AI can do, but I wanted to keep it relegated to the things that are unambiguously positive, at least, on when they're used properly. Yeah, an example of where that's not the case, where it could go in both directions, would be an advancement of what Elon Musk and Neuralink are doing. Direct brain implants that allow for certain types of movement, certain types of control by the individuals who are getting the implants. Now, this sounds like, well, number one, it sounds very crazy, creepy. Who wants to have something in their brain? But on the other hand, those who have ALS or other ailments, This can possibly literally help people to see, they claim, and we'll see about that. But even if it can be used and is currently being at least billed as being used to advance human ability to control things in their lives, we also know that there is a very distinct and almost certain possibility that this will, at some point, if it is given enough time to advance, it will be used for various ugly and nefarious things as well. I can picture this being used for what is it? Exoskeletal suits with integrated brain functionality that can be used for not just warfare, but just to establish criminal networks or whatever. There's a little bit more ambiguity there. We tried to pick out. We didn't want to go too far. So as we were brainstorming this, we tried to pick out 10 items that are as close to not incorruptible, but at least as close to most 95% good as possible. Any type of technology can be used for evil. Okay. Any type of technology can be used to harm people. But we picked out the items that almost certainly will be used, and in many cases are currently being used, to be of direct assistance to humanity, and one would have to pervert it completely in order to change that, in order to turn something evil. So let's get started. Number one, diagnosing the undiagnosable. And you could even go beyond what we did in the article. This is talking about the rare disease phenomenon and demonstrating how even currently artificial intelligence is being used to help certain physicians identify, take in the symptoms and the scans and help to identify one of, or sometimes multiple, of the various, there's 7,000 known rare diseases. And a lot of times it can take days to diagnose, sometimes weeks, even months, and even years, and sometimes it can go completely undiagnosed. It is possible, and we've seen examples of this, of where something is you get it checked out, you get your kit checked out, they go to a specialist number one, specialist number two, group of specialists number three. They're referred across the country, sometimes around the world. Scans are being tossed around. People are trying to figure it out. And then finally, after 5 or 6 years, it's like, oh, okay, that's what this was. There's only been 12 documented cases of this ever. And had we been able to diagnose it 5 years ago, we could have done something, but unfortunately we can't. I know that sounds like a very contrived scenario, but it's also a real one. These types of things happen. So there's a system. Let's see. It's called Deep Rare. One word. Deep Rare is detailed in a landmark paper published in Nature in early 2026 that uses key symptoms to find similar cases in medical papers, the patterns that allow this AI to identify, because it's impossible for doctors to take all of the regular diseases that they see, the regular symptoms that they see, and also have a instant recall, or even a researchable recall of the various 7,000 other diseases that don't get nearly as much fanfare, don't get as much attention because they are so rare. This can change that, and it's only through AI that you can actually do it. One AI model developed at UCLA's Zebra MD project demonstrated it could identify patients for testing with 89 to 93% accuracy and recognize 71% of patients earlier than their actual diagnosis, saving an average of 1.2 years per patient. Now, let's say that you're sick or your family member's sick, and doctors keep telling you for 1.2 years. Okay, 15 months, they're telling you, we just don't know. We're going to have to do some more testing. We're going to have to send this around. We're going to have to try to figure something else out because we don't know what's happening to you. Save those 15 months, and AI can do that for you. So that, I don't see a very clear and easy way for that to be turned evil. So that's why we started with that one. And it's also, we're not getting too speculative. What can AI do in 2050? We don't know. We could speculate, but I think any guess would be very similar to, hey, we're going to have flying cars in 2015. That's what they were saying in the 80s. Marty McFly. Number 2, auditing the inauditable. This is something that we saw a little bit of. Okay, the Doge system that Elon Musk and his team put together was really based a lot upon artificial intelligence. Now, they didn't build it for that. They were able to cobble things together that and cobble information together that was able to do what they needed to do in a very short period of time. But imagine if instead of cobbling it together and just having Elon Musk and his ownership and CEO-ship of like 15 different companies and kids, God bless them, okay? God bless those kids for doing it. But these were mostly just software engineers who were said, oh, hey, for the next couple of months, we need you to find ways. Like, okay, let's do it. Give me the Hot Pockets and the Red Bull, and I'm ready to go. And they did it. And they did a fantastic job. Now, unfortunately, the system wasn't designed to be audited in that fashion. And the bureaucracy was designed to hide their failures. And the legislature wasn't there to protect them. And as much as President Trump and Elon Musk did what they could with the executive branch, there really wasn't a whole lot they could do. But it was a great experiment, and we can even call it a fantastic proof of concept. Now imagine if Congress passed a law establishing that the government itself, the only way that we can truly monitor the federal government's gargantuan bureaucratic state, the only way that we can truly find the waste, the fraud, the rampant waste and fraud that they're estimating in like $500 billion a year. And I laugh at that because I know that it's going to be more than that in many years. Not every year, but certain years it will be in the trillions. Okay, it is. This happens. You can assume that 10 to 50% of what happens in government can be attributed to, at the very least, inefficiency, if not direct fraud. Now, we didn't have, when the Founding Fathers could not have anticipated this, or else they would have put this in there. This would have been part of the Constitution. The ability of a very specific and narrow artificial intelligence that's designed to isolate, identify the patterns, to go through every number line by line in a matter of minutes or hours or sometimes seconds, be able to notice when things just don't add up. And it's not just mathematically speaking, it's inefficiencies, it's in all that stuff. If you were to pass this legislatively, this can't be an executive branch decision. This really needs to be a legislature, but establish that we're going to build it, and we're going to get whoever, Anthropic or somebody else, to get this thing built. We're going to give it certain parameters on how it will operate, and then it will monitor everything. And everybody's got to put everything in there. Everybody's got to put everything in there. And then when it flags these instances of likely fraud, they will be reviewed, and then we will take appropriate action. And then it should, of course, be applied at the state level as well. Not from D.C. I'm not suggesting that, but we'll call it a franchise microcosm miniature version of it should then be passed by any state that is willing to boldly go after their own fraud. And the government can help, cannot get involved. I'm not asking federal government to get involved in any type of interference with the states any more than it already does, but at least offer the resources to be able to make it happen. And that is something, folks, that certainly would reduce. It wouldn't eliminate it because, of course, people are smart and evil, and they will go through and find ways to circumvent that system. They always will. There's no way to stop that completely. But if we can eliminate 70, 80, 90% of the fraud and inefficiencies, it's not just about criminal fraud. It's also about, we noticed that this guy's sending his TPS reports over to this agency, and that agency doesn't do anything with them. So why don't we just eliminate the TPS reports? Huh? Makes sense. Number 3, seeing fires before anyone else. This is something where this is very direct and straightforward, and I can actually probably combine this with one of the others, which I'll get to in a minute. I won't combine it, but seeing fires. Do you know that many fires, I would say most, at least when we're talking about like wildfires, most of them occur in a way that could be that is basically seen. You can actually, after the fire is done and put out, they can actually go back historically and see, oh yeah, satellites caught this fire when it was basically the size of a slightly bigger than a campfire. Satellite caught that, and we didn't get to it for another 2 hours until it was like 5 acres or whatever, until somebody actually saw large amounts of smoke. Well, you can actually fix that with AI, and it's super simple. That's the beauty. This doesn't require, oh my gosh, we're going to have to create an entire infrastructure in AI. And no, you can just get it all plugged in. Okay. And somebody already is. According to this, Google's FireSat is a constellation of satellites dedicated entirely to detecting and tracking wildfires. When the full constellation is operational, it will provide global high-resolution imagery updated every 20 minutes, enabling the detection of wildfires roughly the size of a classroom. Sorry, I said just bigger than a campfire, so a little bit bigger than that. FireSat uses AI to compare the current image with the prior thousands of images of the same spot, takes local weather and other factors into account, and then reliably determines if a fire is present in that image. When you're talking about wildfires, alerts that are half an hour apart or even 10 minutes apart, or heck, an hour or two apart, those can be the difference between billions of dollars worth of damage, possibly lives lost, and oh, yeah, we had this little fire we were able to put out. It took us about 10 minutes, done. Could have been a big one. If we'd waited another 10 minutes before we got there, it could have been bad. But instead, it took us about 10 minutes. We're good. So that's a no-brainer. And thankfully, it's already happening. Number 4, recovering what time has buried. Now, I'm going to read part of this so that you have an understanding. It is estimated that humanity has lost more than 75% of all languages ever spoken. Entire civilizations, their prayers, their commerce, their arguments with God have vanished behind scripts no living person can read. Ancient scrolls scorched by the eruption of Vesuvius, clay tablets from Mesopotamia stacked in museum basements, biblical manuscripts fragmented enough to frustrate the most devoted scholar. For generations, the bottleneck was identical. Not enough experts, not enough time, not enough computational power to process the patterns buried in thousands of years of deteriorating text. AI is tearing through that bottleneck. South Korean authorities employed a small team of translators to decipher hundreds of thousands of articles written in Hanja, a historical writing system based on Chinese characters. The translation was expected to take decades, but AI translations completed in a matter of months uncovered an unprecedented array of historical documents, from state visits to music concerts. In the volcanic ashes of Pompeii, CT scans combined with AI decipherment are recovering text from burned scrolls that were thought permanently destroyed. Then there's the Dead Sea Scrolls, already among the most studied documents in history, and they are, through AI, are yielding new secrets. For Christian scholars and archaeologists, the implications are profound. These are not merely antiquarian curiosities. These are windows into the world of the early church, the ancient Near East, and the textual transmission of Scripture itself. Once a writing system is finally deciphered, a new world opens. Before that, we knew a civilization that used a script we weren't able to read only through its material culture. And we're able to read their writings, or after we're able to read their writings, a whole new treasure trove of information becomes readily available. We discover ancient people through their own words, by reading the documents they left behind. AI is giving historians the closest thing to a time machine that the modern world has ever produced. It's like a Rosetta Stone, and this is something where the combination of pattern recognition in the visuals, historical data, inputs from being able to track the data across hundreds of thousands, millions, tens of millions of inputs. This is where AI has a tremendous advantage. And being able to even cross-reference, there's another aspect to it, being able to cross-reference known world events and speculate which it's hard to understand how AI can do that, but it can speculate how, perhaps our understanding of the way things are, the way things were, is incorrect. That ability to overcome bias is far easier when it comes to AI than it is with humans, generally speaking. And that's not to say that AI doesn't have bias. It does, for sure. They do. They have their own. I mean, as human creations, they have their own human biases baked in. That's just part of the technological nature of, well, everything. But it can be asked to think outside the box. It can take something like interpretations and spit out a result that is far more accurate than we can even realize. Number 5, halfway there, feeding the world without a summit. I was there. I wasn't there at the events, but I remember I don't even remember what they were called. Something for Africa, not Humanity for Africa. It was when they came out with a song. It was like early 1980s. We Are the World. It was like Michael Jackson and a bunch of other people. Billy Joel was there. I remember he was like a small version of it. Dan Aykroyd was singing. Dan Aykroyd was there singing. It was crazy. Had all these different. Lionel Richie, I think, was leading it with Michael Jackson. Yeah, and this song came out. It was a good song. It was a really good song. Cyndi Lauper killed it. Even back then, Bruce Springsteen wasn't such a troll. So yeah, good stuff. Point being is that we have these all the time. There's every year there's these summits about how we're going to feed the people. There's more starvation here in Africa, in Asia, in wherever. There's always going to be starving people. And it's not because we don't have the food or the ability to grow the food. We have the food. We have the ability to grow the food. Even in today's world, I know that I often talk about food shortages. They're not necessarily necessary. If I can be redundant about my redundancy, they can be overcome through different types of farming. I do believe, of course, we should be focusing almost entirely on regenerative farming. I say almost because there's certain crops that can't be, but most of our food could be done regeneratively if we applied the right philosophies. If we got rid of the pull of big ag, if we got rid of the Monsantos owned by Bayer and stuff like that, and focused, instead of going after the GMO route, focus on the God gave us food, so let's grow it route. That would be ideal. And I do know that a lot of people are heading in that direction. Praise God for that. So that's a good thing. But as it pertains to AI has the ability to advance farming. And I'm not just talking about the robotic side of things. I did see what I consider to be an amazing, still to this day, I'm not 100% convinced that the video itself wasn't AI generated, but there was this video that's been circulating, and there's actually multiple videos that have been circulating showing these crops, these machines that are rolling over the crops. Okay, they're almost like, it's hard to describe what they look like. They're more like wagons than tractors, but they got lasers. They got these sharks with laser beams in them. Just no sharks involved. And these sharks, they find bugs and they zap the bugs. They go over it and they just start. It's like no need for pesticide. We're just going to laser burn. Set phasers to kill bugs, right? It's amazing. It really is a cool technology, and it's so cool. I still have that sort of, I'm not a boomer, but I have the boomer mentality of that can't be fake. That's got to be, that can't be real. That's got to be, there's no way. Yeah. And that's literally exactly what happened. I changed my voice and everything when I first saw the video. I'm not just talking about that, though. I'm talking about the planning aspect of it. I'm talking about utilizing AI to be the ultimate farmer's assistant. And not just for farmers, but also like farmers is in like the farmers that are already created, that are already done. They're already farming. I'm talking about expansion of farms, into areas and lands, and times and seasons that make the most sense. AI can help when given the right scans, the right information, the right knowledge. It can be used rather to pick out, hey, this field is great for corn. You should be planted this time of year. You need to have this much water. and be sure to maybe before you start planning to put out this machine or that machine or whatever, and we also notice that there's bees, half a mile away that could be beneficial to these crops. So you might want to try to expand. I don't know. I'm being very hypothetical here because I don't know exactly how it would work. I do know this though, that it can, and that if you basically made a farmer's assistant version of these this AI farming analysis tool, I guess. I don't even know, but give it access to soil sensors, give it access to drone imagery, let the satellite imagery, the historical satellite imagery help out, and then give the information to farmers and let them figure out, with real-time access to all this stuff, weather modeling, pest detection. There's so much that can be plugged into AI. Thus far, humans have been granted, blessed by God with with an instinctive ability to do all of this stuff that I just described. AI can just make it more accurate, make it faster. I think a good farmer can survey the land, can look at the sun, can smell the air, and know the calendar, and check and know from experience of after years or decades or even generations of family doing it. Know, okay, yeah, it's time to plant the wheat. I don't know. We already have that. Now apply the technological advancements to that, and all of a sudden you can take that farmer's knowledge and advance it. Now, what if you have a farmer that doesn't have the knowledge? A new farmer, we'll say. Same thing, just they'll be more dependent upon that particular AI farmer's assistant, we'll call it. So, long story short is, take this, increase it at scale, and all of a sudden, we have plenty of food to be able to distribute. Not just to ourselves, but also to the world. And I'm not trying to be a bleeding heart liberal and saying, oh, we got to feed everybody. But let's face it, if we have enough food, easily enough food, then we can distribute it. And we should. We don't want to waste food. It's like, okay, well, we produced an extra 15 billion potatoes this year. I guess they're just going to rot. No, let's get the potatoes over to Africa, Asia, South America, whoever needs it. Antarctica, maybe the penguins need it. Okay, do penguins eat potatoes? The real question is, would penguins eat potatoes if we gave them to them? I don't know. Number 6, negotiating without ego. This is a controversial one. I'm going to just go ahead and say, and to be fair, this is one that I personally thought of, but I do think it's possible that, and obviously the timeliness in this particular episode makes sense since we are in the midst of the Iran war. But I think it's at least possible that if you apply, let's say you've got two nations, let's say in this case, maybe we need something less lopsided than Iran, U.S. Let's say, okay, Ukraine and Russia, okay? You take and you have an AI negotiating tool, and you take Ukraine's situation, their military capacity, their everything about the nation, their needs, not just in wartime, but their needs in general, the cultural differences, the perspectives of the people in the various regions of Ukraine, the military capabilities, their desires for the end of the world, the things that they will definitely give up, the things that they would never give up. You apply all of this, do the same thing with Russia, and then let AI come up with a treaty framework that allegedly, if I'm correct, then it should be able to spit out as close to a win-win for everybody in ways that negotiators across the table simply can't. Not because they're incapable of it if given enough time and data. The problem is that, generally speaking, these things do take more time than it's allowed. It's like, oh my gosh, we sat at that table for like 9 hours and we still couldn't get anything done. It's crazy. When you're dealing with cultures, when you're dealing with domestic needs intertwined with geopolitical risks, it's not going to take 9 hours or 20 hours or 90 hours or 2,000 hours of negotiating between 1 or 2 or 10 or 15 people to get it done. I mean, I'm not saying that it doesn't get done, because it does, but it's usually it's done because of emotion and mutual desire to bring peace, not because it's the best deal for everybody. I would argue that nearly every treaty, maybe every treaty ever, there have been opportunities that have been missed, opportunities that could have incentivized a quicker and even a more mutually beneficial end result. Right? I mean, things that AI can come up with in this scenario could come out of left field, and no negotiator would ever think about this. You know, like I don't know. According to AI, can see that, according to reports from 2 years ago, this region of Russia has a shortage of this particular potato. I don't know. I keep talking about the potatoes, Russians and penguins. But yeah, but you get the idea. So it can understand in real time, and very much more granularly, the AI can, the needs, desires, and hot buttons and everything of both sides of the equation. It could also do things that negotiators often cannot, which is to bring in third party aspects of it. So hey, by the way, Poland has this need and needs this from these guys and needs this from these guys. Why don't we use it, in exchange for getting this product or this whatever, tickets to the opera in Moscow. In exchange for that, we're going to use this place to facilitate a monthly meeting between the two powers. And I don't know. I mean, I'm stretching here because I've tried to, and I did put in the effort, tried to come up with how exactly it would work. I don't know. I just know that it probably would. And I'm not saying that it has to be binding from the initial part. And I would say in almost all of these cases, maybe without necessarily the fire one, but so far, all of the ones that we've described do require human interaction. You're not going to have AI tell a kid what's wrong with them, what rare disease they have, unless it's a suggestion at first, at least. It's a suggestion to doctors to then say, okay, I think it's this, so you go check it out and see what you think. And then the doctor's like, heck yeah, you're right. Good job, AI Bob. That's what we need. But so obviously in this scenario, that applies as well. You're not going to just have AI spit out a result and it's like, okay, cool, here's your treaty. You sign here, and we'll see you at the opera in Moscow. That's bring the potatoes. That's not how it would work. But it could come up with things that can be intriguing to both sides. And that's something that, again, it's so difficult because when you're talking about bringing peace and preventing further deaths amongst your own people that you know, people that you represent, sometimes even family members, it's hard for a negotiator to look at these negotiations objectively, whereas AI can and should, and objectively with the subtle touch of the subjective. Where there is going to be some trial and error. I don't think that what gets spit out at first makes any sense. AI might think, well, this is reasonable, and then the negotiator might look at it and say, absolutely, positively not. But we would do this instead. Now it throws in a new input. There's still going to be back and forth. It still might take 9 to 15 hours to get it all done. But at the end of those 9 to 15 hours, you're going to have a more polished version of a mutually beneficial treaty than if you just have negotiators and translators and all that stuff. Number 7, watching the sky. This one very similar to the fire watching. It's just the computational pattern and pattern recognition component of it. You got scans of space. Use AI to do what humans cannot, which is to identify anomalies. That's it. Hey, that little blip wasn't there yesterday or last week. Let's see. Could that be a comet or a meteor or something like that? Oh yeah, it is. Okay, now where's it heading? Looks like it's heading towards Johannesburg. It's like, oh, well, that sucks. How big is it? You get the idea. And again, this is already definitely being done. As a matter of fact, we've been getting results from it. I would say just advance it. Okay, what's it called? It's called the Asteroid Terrestrial Impact Last Alert System in Chile. Well, considering how the Bible lays out the end times, it may behoove us to put a little bit more effort than just an outpost in Chile that is looking to the skies and searching for, you know, asteroids, comets, stuff like that. Number 8, mapping the mind. The mind is, of course, the true, in my humble opinion, final frontier. Psalm 139, verse 14 declares, I will praise thee, for I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Marvelous are thy works, and that my soul knoweth right well. A lot of times people don't realize that is pointing to the mind. That is an expression of just absolute gratitude for this so far beyond our possibility to comprehend itself mind that we have been given. We have been blessed with something that makes no sense. Our mind should be impossible. And now we have, with AI and with some advanced scanning technology, we have the ability to have a better understanding of it, and not just for the sake of understanding it. And by no means am I suggesting we would have a godlike understanding of it, but we can have a much better understanding of it. In other words, to help us to find cures for Alzheimer's, to help us address and understand, is there a better way to treat PTSD? Is there a better way to treat depression without having to go to let's get them more drugs. Let's get them, give them this drug, these 5 drugs, these 15 drugs, let's try this. No, if you're able to scan brains and see responses and have an AI generated understanding of what's really happening, I can envision, I can't guarantee, but I can at least envision that we can come up with better non-pharmaceutical treatments for a lot of this stuff. Pharmaceuticals, for the most part, are designed to either remove conditions that are considered to be bad, and I'm not talking about remove the Alzheimer's. I'm saying remove the conditions, the symptoms. It's not the actual states. Remove the symptoms that are considered to be bad, which is ludicrous because in a lot of ways symptoms themselves are the body's own way of fighting off diseases. I don't take medicines that will. I wouldn't take a cough suppressant, for example. I never would, because my body is coughing for a reason. So let it cough. The same thing can be said for the psychedelics. And I'm not suggesting, we can't have any drugs. It's just, why do we go straight to drugs? There could be better treatments. There could be better ways to understand. And of course, in my, I guess you could say, biased or hopeful outlook, I would say that if they were to do this, if they were to track and be able to see the effects of certain types of events, the effects that it would have on the brain when the brain is suffering from certain ailments, I am nearly certain that they will find that through the power of prayer, through biblical reading, through fasting, through various Bible healing methods, other people praying upon someone, they will find, holy cow, wait a second. Are you telling me that yeah, I'm not going to give a hypothetical. You get the idea there. Number 9, cracking the energy equation. Now, this one is as close to speculative as possible, but it's also already happening. So it's a combination of the two. I'm not going to go into great detail because it talks about types of energy, particularly fusion energy, which terrifies me. And so, because we're talking about, trying is, if you've ever seen Spider-Man 2, the Tobey Maguire version of Spider-Man, you know that it was the power of the sun in the palm of my hands. Well, that's sort of what we're talking about here. And so I'm not even going to address this one. Just you can read that one on your own. Again, you can find all of this over at economiccollapse.report or economiccollapse.substack.com. Either way, that one over my head. That one was one that I did not come up with. Number 10, lost in translation, no more. And this is very already happening, obviously. But there are 7,000 languages. There should be no reason why we shouldn't be able to have real-time translation. Many phones already have it. It's not just when you're traveling. It's great in emergency rooms. It's great in all sorts of situations. Police should have it at all times. There should be no way that somebody should say, no English, no English, and vice versa. We should be able to travel and not fear that we're going to be lost in our own translation. We should be able to know that wherever we go, we're going to be able to talk to them. The universal translator concept from Star Trek is now very viable and very possible, and it is today already coming true. Just advance it. That's a no-brainer. And I almost wish that we hadn't put that in number 10, because that seems all sorts of anticlimactic. But it's not, because we actually do have a climax, which it's about stewardship. And, there is that fear that I have. And I wouldn't call it necessarily fear, because, again, as I noted in the opening, if we are truly in the biblical end times, then even things that seem to our human senses to be truly negative, that's part of God's plan. And we might not love it, and I can't wait to be tortured. It's not like we're sitting there welcoming it, but we shouldn't fear it. With that said, my concern for humanity, especially if we're not in the end times, let's say that the end times are, I'm talking like the events in the book of Revelation. Let's say that they're decades off, and most of us are going to be dead before they happen, and we still have to live through this AI rise. Well, my concern is that we are going to become dependent. Everybody always has this fear. Not a lot of these technologists. They're like, they're trying to describe a variation of basically Skynet, right? Where AI takes control and kills us and enslaves us. And the old movie trope of AI was designed to protect humans, and it determined on its own that the only way to protect humans is to kill other humans, because humans are the worst thing that could happen to humans. So dumb. Anyway, I don't fear any of that stuff. I'm not saying that it can't happen. I'm just saying that it seems extraordinarily unlikely. No, the most likely scenario for our demise as a society is that AI works perfectly. Is that AI does exactly what it's supposed to do. It makes our lives so easy that we basically become idiots. Just an example, imagine a generation of farmers that grows up not having to actually survey the land. They just have to look at a screen, or they just have to listen to their earbud, and their phone tells them, okay, yeah, you plant here, here, and here. Make sure to do this, and here's how much water you need, and you don't even have to do it. I've already got everything ready to go. Just say yes. As a matter of fact, you don't even have to say yes. I already did it. You're good. You're a farmer. Congratulations. Okay. Go do whatever you do with your time, since you don't have to do anything anymore. That's my fear. That's my concern, I should say, is that AI is good. We talk about, you've got Elon Musk talking about universal high income. Okay. Of course, people have been talking about universal basic income for so long. Elon Musk got to go bigger and better. It's like, hey, we don't need universal basic income. We need universal high income. And somehow he's able to create the complete contradiction, the cognitive dissonance required to be able to say everybody will be rich. Didn't he watch The Incredibles? When everyone's super, nobody is. I was going to pause there for dramatic effect, as if it's something profound, but it's not, and I didn't do that to you. Yeah, he's talking about universal high income, that basically we are. AI is going to turn us all into useless idiots, and we got to just figure out how to survive. And the way that we'll do that is we're going to get credits, and we're going to have all the food that we want, because AI and robotics, physical AI, will be able to generate 10 times as much food as we do today. It's not going to taste good, but hey, it's nutrient. It's a blah blah blah. That's what my concern is. And in other words, we would pass off stewardship. This is our land that God gave us Started with the Garden of Eden. In the Garden of Eden, basically Adam had one goal. Let me see. Pull it up. Genesis 2:15. And the Lord God took the man and put him into the Garden of Eden to dress it and to keep it. Now, in Hebrew, dressing and keeping is a matter of obviously cultivation, farming, and then vigilant guardianship. Keeping it is a matter of making sure that, hey, you keep the critters. This is basically what he's saying is, here's the Garden of Eden. You're the farmer. You're the steward. Once we take away our need to be stewards, once we're now all of a sudden just the observers, we're no longer stewards. We have shirked our own stewardship, given it to something else, our quote-unquote AI assistant, and now we're just, doing nothing, really. Maybe we might monitor, maybe we don't, maybe it just does it so well that we just have to go play Grand Theft Auto 15. I don't know. I don't even know what people would do. That is my concern. And that's the direction that we're heading. This isn't just if this happens. No. If the current trajectory of the world happens, that's what's going to end up happening. I was listening to a video about AI. They're talking about like 3 different stages. We're in stage 1, and it wasn't super advanced. It wasn't talking about, we're going to get an AGI and ASI and whatever. No, it's just talking about current AI. And how you've got AI, which most people use. You might use multiple AIs for different reasons. Okay, great. Then there's agentic AI, which takes it, and now you have it going and doing certain things, and you give it less instructions, but it's able to accomplish more by through using the various AI agents, and even the AIs within being commandeered by the AI agents. Those AIs have their own agents that are doing other things. It's like just agents all the way down, right? And then stage 3, of course, is where you have one agent that does everything for you, does it 24/7, does it without you asking, and then basically becomes almost your boss. But it's okay because you're getting everything you need, and combine that with your universal high income plus, whatever else, and all of a sudden you have nothing to do, no participation whatsoever in building a grand empire of whatever, farmers or something. It's insane. And of course, we're so used to there's haves and have-nots. This opens the door even further for the haves, and it shuts the door even more for the have-nots. But that's okay, because Elon Musk will give us universal high income, which of course will be universal nothing. It won't be what the World Economic Forum tells us is you will own nothing and be happy. It is you will own everything, because everybody will own everything, and so nobody owns anything and nobody's happy. But hey, at least we're not starving. At least we have an existence. At least we're useless eaters, and we can sit back and watch reruns or watch the latest AI slop of Brad Pitt and Tom Cruise fighting each other or whatever. I mean, that's my concern. That's what I wouldn't say fear, but that is hey, we're not in the biblical end times, and AI is not part of the beast system, and so we're toast as a society because we lost our ability to do anything. The aforementioned farmer that is utilizing AI to take care of everything, in the near future, if AI were to break or just whatever, stop. There's EMP strikes, probably launched by China's AI to stop America's AI, or vice versa. In that scenario, now, oh, wow, crap. Well, I've been letting AI do my farming for the last 7 years, and now I don't remember how to start up the tractor or whatever. I don't know how to survey the land. I didn't teach my kids any of this stuff because I didn't think they'd have to do it. You get the idea. The rug pull, if AI were to change dramatically, that would be the rug pull that destroys modern society. AI could bring us into the 22nd century today, and it could also send us back to the 18th century tomorrow. That's the discrepancy. That's the width of how different AI might be. So pray on it and read this article. I do, again, I know I went through the whole thing pretty much, but read through it because it will give you some ideas. And hopefully it will also not just act as a precursor for what's possible, but a warning of what is almost certainly likely. I do believe that AI is going to be part of the beast system. I think it's already developing it as we speak, or part of the development. I'm not saying, a lot of people are saying AI is the Antichrist. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying it can't be. I don't think it is, but maybe it is. But I do think that it is, at the very lowest scenario, it is a tool that will be utilized by the powers and principalities to usher in a beast system. Is it going to be an intrinsic part of it? Is it going to be just a precursor? I don't know. I just have that whole, it's got that whole beast system vibe to it. So that's where we stand. So yeah, check it out, economiccollapse.report, economiccollapse.substack.com, patriot.tv/coffee. This is a Christian coffee company, and it is the best coffee that I've ever had. That's not, you're simping for your sponsors. No, it's the other way around. I'll tell the quick story since this segment has been so long anyway. Quick story. I already had a coffee company that I was working with. It was our own coffee company. Like I had a stake in it. And, friends said, hey, you got to check this out. I'm investing in these guys. You got to see it. It's a Christian coffee company. See if it's something you'd be willing to promote. I was like, okay, fine. And then a couple weeks later, I get the package. It's like, okay, I'll check it out later. And, a few days pass. It's like my coffee grinder emptied out. It's like, okay, now's a good time. So let me go ahead and I plugged in the beans and I ground the coffee and I brewed the coffee. And with hot coffee, I'm not one that likes to drink immediately. I don't like, I want to be able to take a drink, not just a sip of coffee. So I let it cool for, 5-10 minutes. Okay. And I did that. I'm going about my work and doing my thing in the morning. And then I reach over and I grab the coffee and I'm not thinking about, oh, wow, I'm going to get to try the new Promise Grounds coffee for the first time. I'm just thinking, keep working. I'm taking a sip of coffee. And I took that sip. And if you've ever seen the cartoon Ratatouille, there's a moment where at the end, the critic, the food critic, he takes one bite of the ratatouille and he's like brought back to a time when he was a cold and sickly child and his mother gave him some ratatouille and it warmed his heart. That was what I felt. It's like I had this ratatouille moment where it's like I took the sip and then it's like, oh, it's like, wow, it's like the best coffee I've ever had. What in the world? And I was confused at first. I'm like, what did I do differently? I was like, oh crap, this is the Promised Ground stuff. That's 100% true story, folks. That's exactly how it went down. And I dumped my other coffee. It's like, hey guys, yeah, I got a new coffee to promote because this stuff's awesome. And that doesn't even take into account the fact that they are a Christian coffee company, that the proceeds go to Christian charities. Okay, there's so many things to check it out. To check out, even if you're not going to buy the coffee, which you should definitely buy the coffee or their cool mugs or anything like that, go to patriot.tv/coffee. Lord willing, I will be back very soon with another episode. But in the meantime, you all stay strong, stay safe, and God bless.
What is he doing?
He's beginning to believe.